So I promised to explain the differences between prayers, chantings of sutras, mantras and meditation. All these four items are interrelated. There's connection. It depends on how we explain and interpret. First thing is prayer. There is no religion here in this world where they do not practice prayers. Prayers and worship, offerings, three important aspects for people to practice any religion. And first they worship. After that do some offerings. Then start to pray. Some people say their prayers were answered. Some others say no answer. Then modern psychologist reveals some secret about these prayers to tell us who answered to our prayers, whether the God or the Buddha or any other supernatural living beings. To practice a religion, first and foremost, we create the concept of God. This is natural. One Western philosopher has mentioned, his name is Anatole France. He says, if God does not exist, we had to create a God. Otherwise, we cannot console our human mind. They can understand. We have so many weaknesses in our mind. Most of those weaknesses are based on our fear, suspicion, imaginations, or lack of understanding. But it is not so easy for us to get rid of our fear, suspicion and imagination. Our minds are deluded and minds are polluted, and in the same minds we create many kinds of craving, anxieties, selfishness, and because of these mental attitudes, always we maintain some sort of insecurity feeling. We have already realized, even modern science or academic knowledge cannot wipe out the fear and insecurity. So religion is the only solution. Whether it is true or not, it really works. But we do not know how those things work. That is why we always refer to a God. If not some other supernatural living beings. Buddhism does not emphasize too much on prayers. That means the Buddha wanted to develop our self-confidence. What is this self-confidence? Very hard to explain and very difficult to build up. Confidence regarding our life, our health, our property, our security. How to develop this confidence? Because there are so many disturbances, internal and external. To avoid these unhealthy attitudes, the only solution that we have chosen is religious prayers to console the mind. By depending on something, we develop confidence. We develop hope. Although some others criticize Buddhists and Hindus as idol worshippers, but they are not ready to admit that they are also idol worshippers. They create the image of God in their mind. Otherwise they cannot pray. And we not only create that image of God in our mind, and we erect visible objects according to our way of thinking. Then we concentrate on this object. Image is an object or symbol. So when we pray, we express all our grievances, problems, worries and difficulties with confidence, thinking that we can gain, we can find out some sort of solution to get rid of our problem. After that, naturally you develop or you experience some relief in your mind, because you have created hope and confidence in your mind that you will be able to get rid of your problem. Without such objects, it is very difficult for you to analyze your problem, to investigate, to find out where those mistakes are and who are responsible for these problems, who create this problem. Maybe due to our own mistake. If not, misusing, abusing our life, if not our poisonous mentality that we have radiated by polluting the atmosphere, such as our anger or hatred or jealousy or enmity. We pollute the atmosphere and reflect or return to us the bad effect. But we are not ready to accept that, because we do not know how to analyze. Then we suspect others. Then create the ideas, thinking of charms. It's very common. Charms, black magics, if not, ghost, a spirit, devils. If not, go and read the horoscope. See, the planetary system, how these planets influence our life to disturb us. Then go to mediums, astrologers. They also give some information. After listening to them, then either you reduce your tension, if not aggravate the situation. However, that is not the final solution. So throughout our life, we struggle. We try to find out all sort of sources, ways and means to get rid of our problem. But we won't be able to see the end of our problem. We could manage to overcome certain problems, some other unexpected problems come to us, whether we are good or bad. However, if we are good, we can minimize, we can avoid many problems, but not all. Because natural problems are unbiased. No favoritism. Nature, climate, heat, wind, and the cosmic energies. There are many kinds of cosmic energies. We always refer to the stars and planets. They really work. And certain influences also, unpleasant or miserable experiences, we had to come across through some invisible living beings. See how many enemies are there, known and unknown. But we are not sure who really create all these problems. Then we start this prayer. the time that you spend for your prayer is very important. Let it be under any religion. Because at that time, you directly focus your mind, divert towards a powerful religious object, God, or say goddess of mercy, bodhisattvas, and some other devas or deities. Then you can maintain some sort of peace at that time in your mind to reduce your fear and tension and worries. You also reduce your stubbornness, pride, and superiority complex, and egoism. These are very strong forces in our mind. But at that time, we reduce certain degrees of all these forces. Then what will happen? When you reduce the tension and fear and suspicion in your mind, so many changes take place in your physical body. Especially brain cells, neurons, glands. We have so many glands here and there all over the body which secretes some sort of liquid, hormone. When the mind is polluted, when the fear and the tensions and hatred are boiling in our mind, affect these glands here and there. And at that time, these glands produce poisonous liquid or hormone. Immediately we experience the bad effects. Rashes and the face and the eyes turn into reddish color. Blood circulation increase. Pulse, heartbeat increase. See? But when we reduce all these things, we normalize the whole machinery. Then reduce the disturbances at which are created by that polluted mind. Now if you can spend at least half an hour or an hour concentrating on one particular point without allowing your mind to jump here and there, then you calm the whole system, physical body, not only your mind. Then you experience calmness, peace, and very soothing feeling in your physical body also. Sicknesses which are created by the mind, because mind creates many of those sicknesses, then slowly fade away. When the mind is healthy, the physical body also slowly becomes healthy. In the sayings of the Buddha, in Anguttara Nikaya, now it's a very practical and meaningful advice. What is this advice? When you are sick, don't allow your mind also to be sick. Physical body is very sick, very painful, but still you can maintain healthy mind. When you develop fear, thinking that you are going to die, and what will happen to you and your family, your property and everything if you die, then the mind also becomes sick. It's a very psychological approach. Cheerfulness, confidence. If we can develop in our mind, then the body also become healthy. So interrelated. When the mind is sick, body also naturally becomes sick. When the body is sick, then we create fear and worry, and the mind also becomes sick. So the prayer is the solution to reduce many of these problems. Whether the God exists or not, it is immaterial. There is nothing for us to argue. Another Western scholar says about the creations of the world and God. He says, first, man creates the God. Then God creates the world. It's a very meaningful saying. Our own concept create this idea of God in our mind. And that concept we have created in the mind, the image of the God, again we interpret saying that God created the world. So those who can think deeply can analyze how we have developed this belief and concept. And today people are fighting, arguing, developing jealousy, enmity because of this concept. And my personal advice is not to argue regarding this issue. Don't try to say that you don't believe in God. It is wrong. You understand? Don't say. And also it is not necessary to say that you believe in God. Now I am one of them. But I can give reasons how people have created this idea and developed and how people were benefited, and again how people have become slaves to their own concept. So if you want to see the God, the best idea is not to say that you do not believe in God, or not to say that you believe in God. Avoid both. The neutral, unbiased, mental attitude, experience, the real concept of God. If you deny the existence of God, you develop some sort of hostility, hostile attitude. You can become skeptic, and that does not contribute anything to maintain peace and happiness in your mind by denying the existence of God. Not necessary to talk about it. On the other hand, you want to argue. I believe in God. I have my own experience. I have seen God. But you cannot understand your own concept, your belief, your imagination create that image of God in your mind. By observing, by using your eyes, creating concept in your mind. When you look at the cloud, you can create so many images there. Your mind creates all these things. You can see dragons there. You can see lions. You can see human figures. All these things are mental images that you have created by watching the cloud. So in the same manner, according to our belief, we create the concept of God. And yes, we have seen. So you can avoid both. Then you can avoid from imaginations. After that, there is nothing for us to argue. Now let us come back to the Buddha again. What is the Buddha's attitude? When you read 45 years of his teaching, can read whole Tripitaka, you cannot find even in one place where the Buddha said, there is no God. He never uttered this word. So Buddha did not deny the existence of God. But he said, whether God exists or not, you can handle, you can make use of this life without depending on anybody. This you can find only in the Buddha's teaching. If God exists, let Him exist. Why do we want to deny? If people want to believe, let them believe. What harm is there? But we should not become slaves to anybody. That is called self-reliance or self-confidence. Only in the Buddha's teaching. And this is the very reason why those great thinkers and philosophers and psychologists and scientists and all sort of people appreciate the Buddha's teaching because of this. So now you can understand how prayers work. Through our prayers, by creating an image of a God, we reduce lot of tension, fears, worries from our mind. They normalize the physical system. And many of those faith healers use this technique. It is some sort of hypnotism. Later, they experience good result. But it is not actually the act of God or spirit. They use the word spirit. A spirit enter, Holy Spirit enter into the body. So it seems nowadays spirits are a very good friend of those religious people. Because without those spirits they cannot propagate their religion. I think they are breeding spirit, just like breeding mosquitoes, to send here and there and to convert people, to cure sicknesses and create this belief in others' mind that spirits enter into your body. In Buddhism you cannot find such teaching. A spirit and ghost. Buddhism also talk about ghost, but unfortunately they are not holy ghosts. They are troublemakers. So, to avoid the disturbances that come through various sources, whether spirit or ghost or devils or planetary system, when you develop this confidence through our prayers, we can guard our mind, we can protect our mind, we can develop confidence. This is the meaning of prayer. Another meaning is praying means asking something, either forgiveness of sins or some sort of material gains or good health or protection. This is called prayer. Ask something. Because we need so many things and we do not know how to gain, how to achieve. That is why a German philosopher, Dr. Paul Dahlke, who has written a book, Buddhism and Science, you can find this saying: all the other existing religions are just like small children. Buddhism is like an adult. The meaning is, small children always depend on others. They do not know how to produce, how to create, how to protect themselves. Depend on others for everything. Adult can understand many things. They know how to look after themselves. They know how to prepare their food and clothing and income. So they do not depend on others for everything. he says, Buddhism is like an adult. Buddhist or real Buddhist do not depend on others because they know how to handle through their understanding, knowledge, wisdom. They know how to analyze. This is the difference. I think so far I have talked only about prayer. There are 3 more items. Of course, easy for me to explain. And the next one is chanting of sutras. Now, what is the difference between prayer and chanting of sutra? There is a vast difference. When we chant sutras, what do we chant? We chant the word uttered by the Buddha. Again, every word that we recite gives very meaningful advices, gives knowledge, calm the mind, create understanding. So we do not chant blindly. In fact, we do not chant asking something from the Buddha. This is the difference now. But we try to follow and practice and experience the good result as explained by the Buddha in this chanting. When we chant, we do not develop too much craze or crazy attitude, asking this. But we try to purify the mind by radiating more and more love, goodwill, kindness, understanding, cooperation. These good qualities we try to cultivate in our mind through this chanting. Then purify the mind. Reduce evil forces, evil thoughts in our mind. This is the difference between prayer and chanting. Then we too experience a lot of good result through our chanting. We chant with devotion. We chant with confidence. We chant out of respect. These qualities that we develop in our mind when we chant change our mental attitude, clean so many dirts from our mind. If you can spend half an hour or 1 hour or few hours for this chanting, you can learn many things that you have not learned earlier. Enrich your knowledge also. But by praying, you never get knowledge and understanding. Because you are asking something, that's all. Then you develop this confidence by the power of, or the virtues or the qualities of the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. Then we recite these words. May I be well and happy. May others, all the other living beings, be well and happy. That is the radiations of our goodwill and kindness and compassion. Then reduce cruelty, anger, jealousy, grudge, ill will at that time. These are the poisonous germs in our mind which create so many other problems, sicknesses. This is the difference between chanting of sutras and ordinary prayer that we utter when we are in trouble. Usually people go and pray when they are in trouble. But we do chanting at any time. The more we chant, the more we experience happiness, peace, satisfaction in our life. Next one. Sutra, this word I did not explain. Usually this word sutra or sutta, Pali sutta, S-U-T-T-A, sutta. In Sanskrit, sutra, T-R-A, same meaning. When the teachings of the Buddha divided into three categories, one section we introduce as sutras. The meaning of this Pali Sanskrit word is a string or the link. Sutra means a string. All the great virtues and the good qualities and knowledge and wisdom and enlightenment are interrelated with these words. Remember the meaning of sutra. When you take one word of the Buddha, there you can find either knowledge or wisdom or purity or holiness or sacredness or enlightenment. So all these words give a meaning. So when we join so many words together, that is called sutra, a string. Interrelated, which contribute all these good qualities. Many other recitals that we use, like Jayamangala Gathas, Mahajayamangala Gatha, Jina Panjara, and certain things, they are not sutras. They are not the word uttered by the Buddha. Later, some of the disciples of the Buddha have compiled these stanzas by introducing the virtues and the characteristics of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. This is the difference with these recitals and the sutra. Then the next one is mantras. This word mantra you cannot find in the Buddha's teaching. It is not a Buddhistic word. This word used by Hindus and Brahmins in India even few thousand years earlier. Veda mantras. So when they do some sacrifices to God, animal sacrifices, and certain things, grains, rice, flour, they burn by reciting mantras, inviting their gods and devas to enjoy. Those recitals are known as mantras. Later, when some other schools of Buddhism come into existence, they have borrowed this idea from Hindus and used as mantras. But mantras are not sutras. Please remember this. Mantras cannot become sutras. Sutras are the utterances of the Buddha. Again, when you analyze the meaning of many of those recitals that you use as mantras, no meaning, only words and no connection. But they say they are very powerful. If you recite these, you get everything. No need to work also. Long ago, don't know how many thousands of years ago, in India, there are no proper schools for students to go and study. But many of those gurus or learned people accommodate few students, about 5 or 6, in their home and provide food and accommodation and teach them. So, one of the gurus who had accommodated few students found out one student was very dull, cannot study, no memory. He had pity on him. He knew this student cannot learn. All the others have completed. Then he was thinking what to do with this poor boy. Then one day he told him, "You have learned more than enough. Now time has come for you to go out and earn for your living." Then he asked, "What to do? I cannot understand." He said, "Don't worry. I will give a mantra for you to recite. Any time, daytime or night time, or whenever you are free, go on reciting. You can gain everything what you want." Oh, he was very happy. With full confidence, he went out. Then wherever he goes, he started to recite this one. Actually, there was no proper shelter or house for him to stay. Many people have regarded him as a mad boy. So one day, when he was sleeping under a tree, he heard a sound. But even then, every now and then, he recited this mantra. What is this mantra? Ghattesi, ghattesi, kinkaranam ghattesi. That's all. So every time this boy is going on reciting ghattesi, ghattesi, kinkaranam ghattesi. He is enjoying by reciting this. So when he was sleeping, he heard some sounds, digging somewhere around that area. Then he recited Gattesi, Gattesi, Kinkaranam Gattesi. This word Gattesi gives many meanings. When he recited Gattesi, Gattesi, Kinkaranam Gattesi, those thieves who have robbed some valuable jewelries and buried under this tree previously, and next day they came and started digging. And then this boy said, Gattesi, Gattesi, Kinkaranam Gattesi. Digging, and I know why you are digging. They ran away. He got out and went on searching, and he found out one jewelry box. They have ran away. He collected it, came back. Again, when he was sleeping outside the gates of the palace, Also he was reciting this. He heard some noise. Again he recited, Gattesi, Gattesi, Kinkaranam Gattesi. Digging and digging, I know why you are digging. At that time, thieves were trying to break the wall to enter the palace. They ran away. Then the people heard this commotion, came out. Then the thieves tried to break the wall. And because of this boy, they could not enter into the palace. Next day, the king heard about this boy, invited him to the palace, and he has become his personal attendant. See, the promotion at once. A minister's place. Then there was a plot to kill this king, planned by his younger brother, king's younger brother. He wanted to kill him in order to become the ruler. So what he did, he approached the barber who comes every day for shaving the king's beard. In his room, nobody else, only king and the barber. He told the barber, tomorrow when you go there to shave, his beard must cut his throat. Next day I will become the king, then I invite you into my cabinet. You can become one of the ministers. So the barber came next day. He thought his blade, the long blade, was not very sharp, so he started sharpening this. Sharpening like this. This boy was sitting there. When he was sharpening this boy was reciting, Gattesi, Gattesi, Kinkaranam Gattesi. Here, another meaning. Rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. I know why you are rubbing. He ran away. He thought this secret was out. And the king was waiting there. What happened to the barber? He ran away. Hey, what happened to you? Why did you run away? Because I knew my secret is already. What is the secret? Then he told. Everything has revealed to the king. So his life was saved, and again this boy was promoted. See the power of mantra? And this teacher was actually Bodhisattva. The Buddha, before gaining his enlightenment, during one of his previous births, he was a teacher, a guru. And he knew the secret of such words, how these words gives different meanings, and how this boy will be benefited because of this. Actually, it is not any secret power. It depends on how we interpret the words. And this is the nature of mantras. No religious values in mantras. No sacredness in mantras from the Buddhist point of view. But Hindus and Brahmin, all the important sacred sayings are regarded as mantras. That is why the later development of Buddhism in different schools again accommodated this into Buddhism and recite as mantras. So whatever you recite with confidence, with devotion, thinking that you may gain something, again you develop so many things, you may experience some good result. But sometimes you miss the target. I remember another story. A young boy who wanted to marry a young girl. He tried in various ways to win the heart of this girl, but girl does not like the boy. Every time when he goes there to see the girl girl indicated that she was not interested in him. But he doesn't want to give up hope. So he went to see a monk. You know, monks, even here in this country, their names are very famous as chant peddlers and who introduce all sort of things. Their mantras are very powerful. And he approached the monk and asked something to win the heart of this girl. He advised him, if that girl doesn't like you, is it not shameful thing for you to go after her again? Why can't you find out another one who is suitable for you? No, I like only that one. Please give me something. So the monks could not escape from it. Then he thought, simply by advising, it is impossible to make him to understand the situation. So what he did, all right, don't worry. I'll give you some oil. Tomorrow, early morning, when that girl come out to sweep the compound, usually in countryside, every morning the girls come out and sweep inside the house and compound by using the big broomstick, this one. When she was sweeping the compound, straight away you must go and apply this oil on her hand. I am sure she will follow you. So this boy went with confidence and applied this oil. That girl got the broomstick and gave him properly and right away and came back to the temple and told, your mantra is very effective. My back also still painful. Or sometimes miss the target. This is the nature of mantras. Anyway, it depends on how you develop your confidence and faith and belief. Whatever you recite with confidence, definitely you experience some sort of good result. But there you cannot find a religious value from the Buddhist point of view. All these things what I have mentioned earlier, prayers, chanting of sutras or mantras also, you can divert into meditation. What is the meaning of meditation here? Concentration. That means we take only one particular point, focus the mind towards this particular point without allowing our mind to run here and there, without allowing that mind to catch another object. This is called meditation. So when you chant sutras, if you concentrate on your chanting, it is meditation, plus many other things. So when you pray, these prayers also you can divert, you can use as meditation because your mind has no chance to catch so many other objects when you pray. And you become very humble. So, one-pointedness, that is the beginning of meditation. So when we train our mind for some times, training and training and training and training, later when the mind is tamed, not wild, then we take another important object. That is for us to develop some sort of inner development, not only to maintain peace in our mind or calmness. Because the peace and calmness that we develop at the beginning through concentration, not permanent but changeable. Circumstances, environment, temptation and agitation provocation. Again change the mind. Then you have to start from the beginning. Later, when you use your mind to analyze, to understand things through your meditation, because mind is very soft, very tamed, and easy to keep under control now. Then you use this mind to analyze things. What is this life? What is this body? What is this world? So item by item we take, then analyze and concentrate. Then the mind becomes very energetic, and many of those suspicions and fear and disturbances that we had in our mind automatically disappear. But earlier, we have trained the mind to maintain calmness for certain period. Again, the dark clouds come and occupy the mind. But after using this analytical knowledge, that is called vipassana meditation, we learn to see or to hear, to smell, to taste, or to feel things through proper perspective. That means without looking at the outlook, a superficial value, or the formation, we try to penetrate our knowledge into this particular object, then analyze. After this analysis, we understand the truth. That is called reality in life, in everything. That is how they attain the purity and holiness, sacredness, in the end, enlightenment and salvation. I think enough, huh?